I want you to think about what you drank this morning. Not what you ate, what you drank. You woke up. You walked into your kitchen, and without giving it much thought, you reached for something to start your day. Maybe it was coffee, maybe tea, maybe a glass of water, maybe juice. Whatever it was, it's probably something you've reached for hundreds of mornings without thinking twice. But here's something most people over the age of 50 have never been told about that first drink. What you consume within the first hour after waking helps shape the neurochemical environment your brain operates in for the next 4 to 6 hours. And I'm not just talking about your energy level. I'm talking about your actual cognitive performance, your ability to find the right words, your ability to hold multiple thoughts in your mind at the same time, your ability to form new memories and retrieve the ones you already have throughout the day. The problem is the drinks most Americans reach for first thing every morning are either actively disrupting that environment or completely missing an opportunity to support it. Today, I'm going to show you 5 specific drinks that research has linked to reducing brain fog and improving mental clarity in adults over 50. Each one works through a different biological mechanism. Each one has been studied in relation to the aging brain, and together they represent one of the simplest daily habits you can adopt to help protect your cognitive function after 50. I'm going to count them down from number 5 to number 1, and I'm saving the most important one for last, because drink number 1 is probably already sitting in your kitchen. In fact, it's something many people drink every single morning. The problem isn't the drink itself. It's one simple preparation mistake that cancels out nearly every brain benefit it has to offer. Before this video is over, I'll show you exactly what that mistake is and exactly how to fix it. So stay with me until the end. I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, a board-certified neurologist and the author of Brain, Brain, and Brain Maker. And what I'm about to share with you is something I now consider one of the simplest and most accessible strategies for protecting brain health in adults over the age of 50. Before we get started, I'd love to know who's watching today. Drop your name and the city you're watching from in the comments below. I read every single comment, and I genuinely enjoy knowing who I'm speaking to. Why what you drink matters so much after 50. Before I show you these 5 drinks, there's something important you need to understand. Why do the things you drink affect your brain so directly and so quickly? Your brain is made up of approximately 75% water by weight. That makes it the most hydration-sensitive organ in your body. Research shows that a drop in brain hydration of as little as 2%, far too small for most adults to even feel thirsty, can measurably reduce short-term memory, slow reaction time, and impair cognitive processing speed. After the age of 50, that sensitivity becomes even greater. Your natural thirst mechanism weakens with age. That means you can be significantly dehydrated without ever feeling thirsty. At the same time, your brain becomes less efficient at regulating fluid balance across the blood-brain barrier. But hydration is only part of the story. The drinks that provide the greatest support for brain health after 50 don't work simply because they contain water. They work because they deliver specific bioactive compounds, including polyphenols, flavonoids, adaptogens, electrolytes, and other neuroprotective molecules. These compounds help regulate neuroinflammation, support BDNF production, improve cerebral blood flow, and strengthen the glymphatic cleaning system I discussed in our video on overnight brain repair. The 5 drinks I'm about to share support your brain through these very mechanisms. And the drink many of you are already having every morning is missing nearly all of those benefits because of one simple preparation mistake. Now let's begin. Drink number 5, lion's mane mushroom tea. Picture your morning. You've just woken up. You're reaching for something warm, something comforting, something that feels like a healthy way to start your day. Most people reach for coffee. Some choose herbal tea. Almost no one reaches for lion's mane mushroom tea. Not because it doesn't work, but because most people have never heard of it. Or they've heard the name and assume it's something exotic, expensive, or difficult to find. The truth is, it isn't. You can find it at most health food stores and through many online retailers. A month's supply typically costs around $12 to $15. And the research behind what it can do for the aging brain is among the most compelling I've reviewed in more than 2 decades of neurological practice. Here's how it works. Lion's mane mushroom, Hericium erinaceus, contains 2 unique compounds called hericinones and erinacines. These are among the very few naturally occurring compounds known to cross the blood-brain barrier and directly stimulate the production of NGF, or nerve growth factor. NGF is the protein responsible for helping neurons survive, stay healthy, and grow. Think of it as the signal that tells existing neurons to remain strong, while encouraging your brain to build new connections. After the age of 50, NGF production naturally begins to decline. That decline is closely linked to the loss of neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to adapt, learn, and form new memories as you age. A double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial published in Phytotherapy Research found that adults over 50 who consumed lion's mane daily for 16 weeks scored significantly higher on cognitive function tests than those who received a placebo. On average, participants improved by 23% on the Hasegawa dementia scale. Interestingly, once they stopped taking lion's mane, their cognitive scores gradually moved back toward baseline. In other words, the benefits depended on continued use. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Sandra. Sandra was 63 years old, a retired graphic designer from Portland, Oregon. She described what she called creative fog. She could no longer hold visual ideas in her mind long enough to develop them. It had been getting progressively worse for nearly 2 years, and she assumed it was simply the result of stress and getting older. When I reviewed her daily routine, I noticed that her mornings consisted of black coffee followed by several glasses of plain water. There was nothing in that routine providing bioactive compounds to support NGF production or healthy neuroplasticity. I suggested one simple change. Replace her second morning drink with 1 cup of lion's mane mushroom tea, prepared with hot water, and a small amount of coconut milk to improve the absorption of its fat-soluble compounds. 3 months later, Sandra returned for her follow-up. She described getting something back that she hadn't realized she had lost. She said, "The ideas stay in my mind long enough for me to use them again." Here's the takeaway. Replace one of your morning beverages with lion's mane mushroom tea. Look for products that clearly state dual extraction, using both hot water and alcohol extraction to ensure they contain both hericenones and erinacines. 1 cup a day is enough. And for better absorption, add a small amount of healthy fat, such as coconut milk. Drink number 4, beetroot juice. Picture your afternoon. It's 2, maybe 3 o'clock. The mental energy you had earlier in the day is starting to fade. Finding the right words takes a little more effort. Staying focused isn't quite as easy. That familiar afternoon brain fog, the one millions of adults over 50 have simply accepted as part of aging, has settled in. It feels like getting older. It feels like this is just the way life is now. But in many cases, that's not what's really happening. And beetroot juice addresses the underlying problem in a very specific way. Beetroot juice is one of the richest natural sources of dietary inorganic nitrates. After you drink it, those nitrates are converted through a 2-step process involving beneficial oral bacteria into nitric oxide, a signaling molecule that relaxes and widens your blood vessels. That increases blood flow throughout the body, but the effects on the brain are especially important. Research published in Nitric Oxide, Biology and Chemistry found that beetroot juice significantly increased cerebral blood flow to the frontal lobes, the areas of the brain responsible for executive function, decision-making, and working memory, in adults over the age of 50. These frontal regions are particularly vulnerable to age-related reductions in blood flow. And today, reduced blood flow to the frontal lobes is recognized as one of the major contributors to the afternoon cognitive slump so many older adults experience. Another study, published in the Journal of Applied Physiology, found that older adults who drank beetroot juice before cognitive testing improved their reaction time by 19% and performed significantly better on working memory tests than those who received a placebo. Let me tell you about a patient named Howard. Howard was 71 years old, a retired judge from Atlanta, Georgia. He described his afternoon mental decline as the most frustrating part of getting older. In fact, he told me it was one of the reasons he decided to retire. He no longer trusted his afternoon mental sharpness for the kind of complex legal reasoning his work required. It had never occurred to him that something as simple as a drink consumed in the middle of the morning could influence how his brain performed hours later. Once I explained how nitric oxide works, and that it typically reaches its peak effect about 2 to 3 hours after consuming dietary nitrates, it immediately made sense to him. We added 8 ounces of pure, unsweetened beetroot juice to his morning routine. He drank it at around 10 CALD a.m., allowing the peak increase in nitric oxide to coincide with the time of day when he needed his brain performing at its best. 2 months later, Howard returned for his follow-up. He shared something I'll never forget. He told me he had spent an entire afternoon helping his grandson work through a difficult legal case the boy was studying. Then he smiled and said, "I haven't felt that mentally present in the afternoon for more than 3 years. 8 ounces of beetroot juice. The right timing. Just 2 months. Here's the takeaway. Drink 8 ounces of pure, unsweetened beetroot juice, available at most grocery stores. The ideal time is mid-morning, about 2 to 3 hours before you need your sharpest thinking. Avoid using antibacterial mouthwash beforehand, since it destroys the beneficial bacteria your body needs to convert nitrates into nitric oxide. And when choosing a product, look for one with no added sugar and no preservatives other than citric acid. If you're still watching and finding this information genuinely helpful, subscribe to After 50 Health, because drink number 3, coming up next, is the one most closely connected to the overnight brain repair process I discussed in an earlier video. And remember, drink number 1 is still ahead. Drink number 3, Tart cherry juice. Picture your evening. You're about an hour away from bedtime. You're winding down for the day. Maybe you have a glass of water. Maybe you don't drink anything at all. What most adults over 50 don't realize is that this specific window, roughly 60 to 90 minutes before sleep, is one of the most valuable nutritional opportunities of the entire day. Because what you consume during this time can directly influence the overnight brain repair process I discussed in our previous video. And when it comes to supporting that process, Tart cherry juice is one of the most well-researched options available. Tart cherries, specifically the Montmorency variety, contain the highest natural concentration of melatonin found in any commonly available food. But the benefits extend far beyond helping you fall asleep. Melatonin is also one of the brain's most powerful antioxidants. It crosses the blood-brain barrier remarkably well and helps neutralize the free radicals produced during the brain's intense overnight metabolic activity. Research published in the Journal of Pineal Research found that melatonin derived from tart cherries reduced oxidative DNA damage in hippocampal neurons by 43% during overnight sleep studies. Tart cherries also contain quercetin, a flavonoid that helps inhibit COX-2 neuroinflammatory activity within brain tissue. Reducing overnight neuroinflammation can improve the efficiency of the brain's glymphatic cleaning system and support the memory consolidation that takes place during deep sleep. A double-blind study published in the American Journal of Nutrition found that adults over the age of 65 who consumed 8 ounces of tart cherry juice twice daily experienced a 39% improvement in sleep efficiency, along with significantly better memory performance compared to those receiving a placebo. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Beverly. Beverly was 66 years old, a retired school principal from Memphis, Tennessee. For years, she struggled with fragmented sleep and woke up feeling as though her brain had never fully rested. On average, she was getting only about 35 minutes of deep sleep per night, less than half of what would be considered optimal for someone her age. She wasn't taking sleep medication, and despite trying a variety of supplements, she hadn't found anything that made a meaningful difference. I recommended one simple addition to her evening routine: 8 ounces of unsweetened Montmorency tart cherry juice, consumed about 60 minutes before bed. 6 weeks later, she returned for her follow-up. She told me her morning brain fog had improved dramatically. She described waking up with a level of mental clarity she hadn't experienced in years. But what she said next stayed with me. She smiled and said, "I've started looking forward to mornings again." If you're still with me and this information is changing the way you think about what you drink in the evening, type the number 2 in the comments below. Here's the takeaway. Drink 8 ounces of unsweetened Montmorency tart cherry juice about 60 to 90 minutes before bed. You can find it in most grocery stores and health food stores. Look for products with no added sugar. Avoid brands that contain preservatives beyond citric acid. And most importantly, be consistent. The benefits tend to build gradually over 2 to 4 weeks of regular use. Drink number 2, Matcha green tea. Picture your mid-morning. The boost from your first cup of coffee is beginning to wear off. You're looking for something that will keep you focused through the rest of the morning, without the jitters, without the anxiety, and without the afternoon crash that often comes with a second cup of coffee. According to the research, Matcha green tea may be a much better choice. Unlike traditional green tea, where the leaves are steeped and then discarded, Matcha is made from finely powdered whole green tea leaves. That means you're consuming the entire leaf. And with it, you're getting the full concentration of every beneficial compound it contains. For the aging brain, Two of those compounds are especially important. The first is EGCG, or epigallocatechin galate, the most extensively studied polyphenol found in green tea. Research published in Molecular Nutrition and Food Research found that EGCG crosses the blood-brain barrier and directly helps prevent the formation of beta-amyloid oligomers. These are the small, soluble clusters of amyloid protein that researchers now believe may be even more harmful than the fully developed plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. In other words, EGCG helps interrupt the process before those proteins can accumulate into the structures most closely linked with Alzheimer's progression. A large study from Japan, which followed more than 1,000 adults, found that people who drank green tea, especially matcha, every day had a 54% lower prevalence of cognitive impairment than those who rarely consumed it. The second key compound is L-theanine, an amino acid found almost exclusively in tea. L-theanine increases alpha brainwave activity, the brainwave pattern associated with calm, focused alertness. Unlike caffeine by itself, which primarily increases beta brainwaves and may leave you feeling anxious or jittery, the natural combination of L-theanine and caffeine found in matcha creates what researchers often describe as alert relaxation, focused, but calm. Research published in Nutritional Neuroscience found that this combination significantly improved attention and reaction time in adults over the age of 50, more effectively than caffeine alone. Let me tell you about a patient named Dorothy. Dorothy was 64 years old, a retired professor from Boston, Massachusetts. For nearly 30 years, she had been drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee every day. Over time, she noticed something changing. Her afternoon anxiety was getting worse. At the same time, her brain fog wasn't getting any better. She had already started to suspect that coffee was contributing to the anxiety, without doing much to improve her mental clarity. So we made one simple change. We replaced her second and third cups of coffee with ceremonial-grade matcha, prepared with warm water, not water hotter than 80 degrees Celsius, since excessive heat can reduce the activity of L-theanine. She also added a small amount of oat milk. 8 weeks later, Dorothy returned for her follow-up. She described what she called a different kind of alertness. Sharp, without the sharp edges. She told me she hadn't described herself as having brain fog in over 6 weeks. Even more importantly, she had started writing a book again. A project she had abandoned 2 years earlier because she believed she had permanently lost the ability to focus on long, complex writing. Here's the takeaway. Aim for 1 to 2 cups of ceremonial-grade matcha each day. Prepare it with warm water below 80 degrees Celsius, not boiling water, which can reduce the activity of L-theanine. Drink it in the morning or early afternoon. Try to avoid it after 2 p.m. if you're sensitive to caffeine or want to protect your sleep quality. And whenever possible, choose ceremonial-grade matcha from Japan, since culinary-grade matcha generally contains much lower concentrations of EGCG and L-theanine. Drink number 1, the one you already have. Drink number 1. At the beginning of this video, I told you that drink number 1 is something you already have, something you probably drink every morning. And I also told you there's one simple preparation mistake that's canceling out nearly all of its brain health benefits. That drink, coffee, when it's prepared the right way, I can almost hear what you're thinking. Coffee, number 1 on a brain health list? Yes. But remember, I also said there's one common mistake that changes everything. So here's what it is. Coffee is one of the richest sources of polyphenols in the modern American diet. Its primary polyphenols, known as chlorogenic acids, are powerful antioxidants that cross the blood-brain barrier and help reduce neuroinflammation. They also improve insulin sensitivity within brain tissue, helping address the type 3 diabetes mechanism I discussed in a previous video. And they stimulate the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the protein most directly responsible for neuroplasticity, learning, and memory consolidation. Research published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that adults who drank 3 to 5 cups of coffee per day had a 65% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease compared with people who didn't drink coffee. Not 10%, not 20%. A 65% lower risk. Another study, published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience, found that the chlorogenic acids in coffee specifically improved long-term memory consolidation in adults over the age of 60. Importantly, this benefit wasn't produced by caffeine alone. It depended on coffee's polyphenol content. So, What's the preparation mistake that wipes out so many of those benefits? Adding sugar and flavored creamers. The average coffee purchased from many coffee chains contains anywhere from 20 to 45 grams of added sugar in a single cup. That's the same sugar whose neuroinflammatory and insulin-spiking effects I discussed in our previous video about foods that feed dementia. The same sugar that promotes brain insulin resistance. The same fructose-rich ingredients that suppress BDNF production. In other words, people are taking one of the most brain-protective beverages available, then adding one of the most neuroinflammatory ingredients in the modern American diet. The coffee is working in one direction. The sugar and flavored creamer are pulling it in the opposite direction. Commercial flavored creamers create another problem. Many contain partially hydrogenated oils or high-fructose corn syrup as their primary ingredients, and they're being poured directly into one of the healthiest drinks for your brain. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Robert. Robert was 58 years old, a retired firefighter from Chicago, Illinois. He drank 3 cups of coffee every morning. He had read that coffee was good for brain health and genuinely felt proud of that habit. But every cup contained 2 spoonfuls of sugar and a generous amount of vanilla-flavored creamer. By 9 o'clock every morning, Robert had already consumed roughly 60 grams of added sugar, along with a significant amount of partially hydrogenated oil. Every single day. When I explained that his coffee itself was one of the most brain-protective habits he had, and that what he was adding to it was quietly canceling those benefits, his reaction was immediate. He looked at me and said, "I feel cheated." He had spent years doing something right, without realizing he was undoing it at the very same time. We changed just one thing, the same coffee, the same 3 cups, but we removed all added sugar and every flavored creamer. Instead, he used a small amount of full-fat grass-fed milk or unsweetened oat milk. If he wanted a little sweetness, he added 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, which also has research supporting its effect on BDNF production, and if needed, no more than 1 teaspoon of raw honey. 3 months later, Robert came back for his follow-up. He told me he noticed better mental clarity in the morning within the first 2 weeks. His afternoon focus had improved. Then he said something that made the point better than any statistic ever could. He smiled and said, "I don't even need that 4th cup anymore." If drink number 1 surprised you, type the number 3 in the comments below. And if you're thinking about the way you prepare your morning coffee right now, that's exactly the reaction I was hoping for. Here's the takeaway. Keep drinking your coffee. The research suggests that 3 to 5 cups per day is the evidence-based sweet spot for most healthy adults. But permanently eliminate added sugar and flavored creamers. Instead, use full-fat grass-fed milk, unsweetened oat milk, or unsweetened almond milk. Add cinnamon for flavor and for its potential BDNF-supporting benefits. If you need additional sweetness, use raw honey, but keep it to no more than 1 teaspoon. That's the entire change, and it may turn out to be one of the most impactful dietary adjustments you make all year. Now let's bring everything together. Drink number 5. Lion's Mane Mushroom Tea. Lion's Mane helps stimulate nerve growth factor, NGF, one of the few naturally occurring compounds known to support its production. In 16-week clinical studies, daily use was associated with a 23% improvement in cognitive function scores. Recommendation: 1 cup each day, ideally with a small amount of healthy fat to support absorption. Drink number 4, beetroot juice. Beetroot juice helps increase cerebral blood flow to the frontal lobes, supporting executive function, working memory, and mental processing. Research showed a 19% improvement in reaction time, along with significantly better working memory performance. Recommendation: drink 8 ounces in the mid-morning, about 2 to 3 hours before your most mentally demanding part of the day. Drink number 3, Tart cherry juice. Tart cherry juice helps reduce oxidative damage in the hippocampus by 43% during overnight repair and improved sleep efficiency by 39% in adults over the age of 65. That means better support for the brain's glymphatic cleaning system and the memory consolidation that takes place during deep sleep. Recommendation: drink 8 ounces of unsweetened Montmorency tart cherry juice about 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Drink number 2, matcha green tea. The EGCG in matcha helps interrupt beta amyloid formation before it can develop into the plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. Daily matcha consumption has also been associated with a 54% lower prevalence of cognitive impairment. Its natural L-theanine works together with caffeine to promote calm, focused alertness, without the anxious, jittery feeling that caffeine alone can sometimes produce. Recommendation: enjoy 1 to 2 cups in the morning or early afternoon. Drink number 1, coffee, prepared the right way. Adults who drink 3 to 5 cups of coffee per day have been shown to have a 65% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. Coffee's chlorogenic acids help support BDNF production while reducing neuroinflammation. But there's one important condition. The biggest mistake is adding sugar and flavored creamers. Those ingredients can work against many of the very brain protective benefits coffee naturally provides. Remove them, but keep the coffee. Here's the bottom line. None of these drinks requires a prescription. None of them depends on an expensive supplement routine. They simply require knowing which beverages truly support your aging brain, and which preparation habits may be quietly working against you every single day. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you something. Which of these 5 drinks are you planning to add or change starting tomorrow morning? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one and I genuinely enjoy hearing from you. And here's another question. How many of you are still drinking your coffee with added sugar or flavored creamer? Be honest. Leave your answer in the comments, because I have a feeling the number is much higher than most people realize. And I want you to remember this. The coffee you already have may be doing something incredibly beneficial for your brain if you let it. If you know someone over the age of 50 who could benefit from this information, please share this video with them. The truth is, most people never hear about which drinks truly support the aging brain, or how simple preparation habits can either protect those benefits or quietly cancel them out. By sharing this video, you may be giving someone you care about one of the most practical pieces of health information they'll receive all year. If you're enjoying this content, subscribe to After 50 Health. Every week I bring you research-based nutritional neuroscience that simply doesn't fit into a typical doctor's appointment. Take care of your brain. It's the most irreplaceable thing you have. In my next video, I'm going to show you one everyday spice that researchers now consider one of the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds for the aging brain. You can find it in almost any grocery store for less than $3. And I'll show you the specific daily amount that research has linked to a 41% reduction in neuroinflammatory markers in adults over the age of 60. You won't want to miss that one. I'm Dr. David Perlmutter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. And one final reminder. Before making any changes to your diet or daily routine, talk with your physician first, especially if you're managing a chronic medical condition or taking prescription medications. This information is intended for educational purposes only and should never be considered a substitute for personalized medical advice.